firsthand, these are the worst parts of every Pokemon anime series. The original series. The worst part of the first Pokemon series is Johto. Like, all of it. Now, not everything in Johto is bad, but it is easily one of the worst handled regions in the entire anime. And here's the thing that people forget about. Johto covers 3 out of the 5 seasons of the original series. There's technically more Johto episodes than there are Kanto episodes. So when the region is this inconsistent, it drags the whole series down. The core problem is the filler. Most Johto episodes follow the exact same formula. Ash and his friends meet a character of the day, they encounter a new Johto Pokemon, Team Rocket shows up to steal it, they blast off, and everyone moves on. Rinse and repeat for 3 seasons. Johto League Champions is probably the worst offender. It's the Pokemon season that has probably the most filler within it, and honestly, you can skip most of it and nothing would really change. The Johto League itself is actually solid. It's a strong finish to the original series, but getting there is an absolute slog. Advanced Generation. The worst part about this series is Team Aqua and Team Magma. They were handled really poorly. The whole series, they're made to be this serious, mysterious threat meant to contrast Team Rocket's goofiness, but they stay way too vague the entire time. They just show up, disappear, and nothing's ever really explained. You almost need knowledge of the games to understand what they're doing here, but that shouldn't be the case. If not, then they just come across like they're just aura farming the whole time. And then the climax hits and they just suddenly have Kyogre and Groudon with like no build-up at all, no explanation either, like they're just there? Like seriously, how did they get them? Because we still don't know. It's also resolved in like 2 episodes. It's not visually impressive, with the legendary battle looking pretty rough animation-wise, and then Pikachu absorbs the blue orb and turns it over for like the 3rd time this series. It just adds to the mess. Compare that to later series, or even in Black and White, where Team Plasma had its own issues, at least their goals were clear. Team Aqua and Magma never got there, and honestly, once they were gone, the series got a lot better. Diamond and Pearl. This is a goated Pokemon series, but it's not perfect. And I think we can all agree that the worst part about this series is its pacing. The main problem is that there's no balance. The major events are either way too far apart or way too close together. There's a ton of filler filling in the gaps. For example, it takes 37 episodes for Ash to get his first 2 Sinnoh Gym badges, but then from Fantina to Candace, Ash gets 3 badges in 25 episodes. That's a speed run compared to how the series first started. And because of how quick that stretch was, after Candace, it legit takes a full year for Ash to get his final Sinnoh Gym badge against Volkner. That's right, a full year. That stretch is loaded with filler. Some of it is enjoyable, and there are some important episodes sprinkled in there, but a lot of it doesn't really push the story forward. Another example of the terrible pacing is how Dawn gets hit with 2 losing streaks throughout the series. The first one makes sense when she was a rookie, but then the second one just kind of drags out her final contest ribbon. And it felt like an obvious attempt at stalling things out. As great as Diamond and Pearl is, the pacing is genuinely all over the place. Black and White. Now, I know the first thing everyone's gonna say is that the worst thing is probably giving Ash the soft reboot and making him a rookie again, but if I'm being honest, that is not the worst. It's definitely a questionable move, but I think the worst thing about this series is actually just the entire final season. Adventures in Unova and...
God help me, I'm in pain. No prayer to seal my fate. I'm gonna need thy holy name. I'm gonna freak you out so bad that you won't know. I'll sear it deep inside your mind. As piercing through your soul. I'm rocking no control. Lord help me, I'm not from this night.
Kroger always gives you more ways to save, like low prices in every aisle. Plus, you can clip and save more with digital coupons in the app and earn fuel points to save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Discover more ways to save big. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
And beyond. To infinity and beyond type shit. Okay, here's the thing. The first 2 seasons are actually pretty solid. Season 1 is a great jumping on point, while Season 2 is paced really well, with Ash getting all 8 gym badges and ending with Operation Tempest. But then everything falls apart in the 3rd season. The Unova League is an absolute mess. All that build-up with Trip only for Ash to beat him in the first round. And then, of course, Ash losing to Cameron, who brought 5 Pokemon to a 6-on-6. It was embarrassing. Then Episode N tries to handle Team Plasma, but because their original plans got cancelled, we got a watered-down version instead. N doesn't get enough time here, and Team Plasma, one of the best evil teams in the games, ends up being completely bland. And then we close things out with the Declar Islands, which is basically just filler until XY started. These are some of the most boring stretch of episodes since Johto. It's probably the biggest fall off out of any Pokemon anime series. XY. The worst part about the XY anime is its ending. Now I know XY fans are gonna come at me with pitchforks, but just hear me out for a second. After the Team Flare arc, we got a stretch of epilogue episodes meant to wrap everything up, and they just don't stick the landing in my opinion. First, there's Clement. During the Team Flare arc, Clement sacrifices Clembot to save the day. It's emotional and feels like a real consequence. And then immediately after, Clement just rebuilds him. Same robot, just without the memories. It completely undermines the moment. Then there's Serena heading to Hoenn to pursue contests. Like, what? Showcases and contests already felt really similar, so if that was always the direction, why not just give her contests from the start? It makes Serena's whole journey about figuring out what she wanted to do feel like just a roundabout way to get to where May did, which only took her like 13 episodes to figure that out. And then there's the biggest one, Ash releasing Greninja. That explanation is so forced, dude. We watched Zygarde clear everything up after Team Flare, and then out of nowhere it's like, actually, there are still some vines left over, so Greninja has to stay. It felt so tacked on to an episode that literally had nothing to do with it. Like seriously, watch it back, it has nothing to do with that episode. Serena kissing Ash, yeah, it's a great moment, but it's not enough to save everything around it. The ending really takes away from the satisfying conclusion that the Team Flare arc gave us. Sun and Moon. The worst part about Sun and Moon is its comedic tone, and this one is personal to me because I was one of the people who was turned off by it initially. I eventually gave it a shot and ended up loving it, but even now, that total shift was a lot to take in. The jump from XY to Sun and Moon is probably one of the most drastic changes the anime has ever made. A lot of people believe it was done to compete with Yokai Watch, which was huge in Japan at the time, and you can definitely see those influences. But Yokai Watch has its own identity. Pushing Pokemon in that direction after years of a consistent tone just feels way off. You get a lot of over-the-top expressions and slapstick comedy. Sometimes it worked, but other times it just didn't feel right. Coming right off of XY, which had a world-ending conflict, to Ash going to school in a slice-of-life setting is a rough transition. Now, as the series goes on and does find its footing, the comedy is toned down a bit, and by season 2, the series really takes off. But that rough first impression makes it so much harder for people to give it a chance. And that's the real problem. Pokemon Journeys. The worst part about Pokemon Journeys is its episodic nature, and there's actually a reason for this. When Journeys first started, the anime had moved to a Sunday morning time slot. Because of this, the staff had to shift to a more self-contained format, figuring it would be harder for fans to keep up week to week since Sundays are usually a day for families and friends. But Pokemon was always pretty episodic. Making it more episodic just made everything feel so disconnected. And Journeys is the worst possible series to do this. Ash is traveling across every region, revisiting old friends, rivals, and Pokemon. It's a series that basically demands to have continuity, but you can't have that if every episode has to reset. Character returns feel rushed because they have to be wrapped up in one episode, captures feel rushed, development feels rushed, even Ash's World Coronation series progress feels all over the place, with lots of his battles happening off screen. So instead of leaning into storytelling, the series leans into hype. We get big returns, big moments, things designed to get a reaction, and yeah, that worked, that was pretty hype, but there's not much substance behind it. And then you have Aim to be a Pokemon Master, or how I like to call it, Aim to be Mid, which is just a series of 11 episodes that are completely unrelated to one another and don't really build up to anything because the only true important episode is the last episode, where Ash figures out what it means to be a Pokemon Master. When everything has to be so self-contained, you can't have real progression or payoff, and Ash's final series deserved way better than that. Pokemon Horizons. And finally, we're at the latest Pokemon series. And this might be a controversial take, but I actually think that the worst part of Pokemon Horizons is the time skip. One of the biggest strengths of Pokemon Horizons is that it's a very plot-driven series. There's a real mystery at the center of it. Lucius, the Black Rayquaza, what happened at Laqua. It slowly unravels as the characters grow stronger, builds towards a massive climax, and then the heroes actually lose. That leads into the time skip, which completely changes the status quo. It was literally trending because of how big of a deal it was, especially since they never let Ash catch a mage. But then after that, the story just doesn't hit the same. It feels like they knew exactly what they wanted to do with all the pre-time skip material, and they knew that they wanted to do a time skip, but they didn't really have a clear plan or direction after that. The post-time skip story about the Rising Volt Tacklers trying to come back together, clear their names, and especially the main focus on the Strong Sphere, yeah, like it's cool, but it just doesn't have that same hook as the beginning of the series. Before, the mystery is what kept you invested, but once you have all the answers, it's hard to hold that same level of interest. I'm still enjoying it, don't get me wrong, and there are a lot of genuinely strong episodes in the second half, but it does feel kinda directionless and disconnected at times. It almost starts to feel like Pokemon Journeys. Now the Strong Sphere arc is wrapped up, the series is heading into new territory that doesn't really feel like it was part of the original plan, like, at all. So yeah, that's why I think the time skip is the weakest part of Horizons. It just doesn't capture what made the beginning of the series so good. Hopefully the anime learns from this, from all the worst things that I mentioned from every series, and potentially gives us an even better series in Generation 10.